This week we're taking a tropical cocktail and making it a little bit smoky. Let me show you how I make a Smoky Daiquiri. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, today we're taking a tropical cocktail and making it a bit smoky. We're making a Smoky Daiquiri, and I got the idea for this cocktail when I reviewed this whiskey right here. This is the Peated rum and raisin whiskey from the Killowen Distillery. I'll put a link to that up there, a link down below, but it is a very nice whiskey with some smoky but also tropical notes because it was aged in rum casks. So I wanted to find a kind of a suitable cocktail that would match that whiskey, and I looked up kind of tropical cocktails with Scotch whiskey and I came across this recipe here. This is actually the Islay Daiquiri from Difford's, and it was created by Simon Difford himself, and he called it the Islay Daiquiri because he uses an aged rum to make a standard kind of daiquiri, but then uses an Islay Scotch, which is typically the region in Scotland that produces smoky or peated Scotch, so he calls it the Islay Daiquiri. Me here though, I'm just calling it a Smoky Daiquiri because this whiskey is from Ireland, not Scotland, so I'm not going to call it an Islay Daiquiri. Now, the rum I'm using, it's said to use an aged rum, and I'm also going to be using an aged rum, but I'm not going to be using like a Caribbean rum, I'm using an Irish rum. This here is Killowen's own rum, and it has been aged in a variety of casks. I'll read it out because Killowen is very passionate about their transparency. They tell you what they used to make it and the casks it went into. It was actually aged in a Solera system. So the rum passed through different casks before being discovered, so it would pick up lots of flavors from each of those casks. It's started off in heavily charred Cabernet Sauvignon casks, then went into ex-bourbon casks, then ex-PX sherry casks, before being finished off in a peated Irish whiskey cask. So you get all those flavors building into it, and the Killowen rum itself is quite funky, it's quite deep. And you get this really nice, rich brown sugar but tropical notes to it with like a bit of, you don't really get the individual casks, you just get like the sum of those casks. You get the sweetness from the bourbon, a bit of maybe fruitiness from that Cabernet Sauvignon wine casks, a bit of earthiness from the peated casks, and it just all works together. Interestingly, the rum that these casks was aged in, then was used to age this whiskey. So that's where I really wanted to use these two together, because you get the whiskey that was aged in the rum casks feeding into the rum cocktail, the daiquiri, which is going to give it a nice bit of a synergy. And while I get past the fact that I just used the word synergy in a cocktail, I'm also going to talk about the rest of the ingredients. Very simple. We got some lime juice, we got some honey syrup, which is like 3 parts honey, 1 part water. Heat it all up until it gets friendly and then let it cool down. And we've also got some bitters. Now, the Difford's recipe calls for Difford's Daiquiri bitters, which are hard to find outside of anywhere really. I can't find any shop near me that sells the bitters, so I did a bit of research online, and people said if you kind of go with 1 part Angostura to 1 part orange bitters, you'll get kind of a similar enough vibe, not exactly the same, but you get a similar kind of vibe, so that's what I'm going to go in for. His recipe calls for 4 drops of the bitters, so I'm going to go in with 2 drops of Angostura and 2 drops of orange bitters into my cocktail. And that is more than enough time talking about the cocktail. It's time we make it. It is going to be a shake and drink, so we're going to get our shaker tin and we're going to pop a nice rock of ice into there before we measure out our ingredients. Starting off with our rum, we'll go in with 45 ml or 1.5 ounces of our rum, which is going to give us a nice kind of base of flavor, but also like it's going to make sure that this is a rummy cocktail, that this isn't a whiskey cocktail, because we're only going to be going in with a little bit of that whiskey, but it's going to give us those kind of, like I said, tropical notes with the whiskey, but that smoky note to kind of characterize and give this a bit of a standout note. We're going to go in with 15 ml or 1/2 ounce of our rum, of our rum raisin finished whiskey here. So we're going to go in here, 15 ml, 1/2 ounce, just into there. If you watched my review of this, you'll know this is quite a smoky whiskey, but it's not one note, it's not overpowering, so it should give us some nice flavor into our cocktail. Then our freshly squeezed lime, just give it a bit of a swish, just make sure all that pulp is nicely mixed in through the cocktail. It's again 15 ml or 1/2 ounce of my freshly squeezed lime juice, and then I'm going to go in with my honey syrup. I'm going to go in with 10 ml of my honey syrup just to give myself, actually use this side, 10 ml. This actually is the Difford's jigger. I'm not sponsored by Difford's or anything, but this here, I find it to be a really nice jigger. Like, it has a couple of features to it. You can like leave it hanging over the edge, it won't fall in. It's got like nice, really good markings on it, so you know exactly what you're doing. And for some reason that I just love, it's magnetized. Something about it, I really just love it. It's a really good jigger if you need a good jigger. They sell on Amazon, they sell anywhere. The Difford's jigger is actually really, really good. Now on my bitters. I'm going to go in with, like I said, 2 drops of each one, so just careful. 1, 2, and then in 2 drops of my Angostura bitters, just to give myself a nice bit of flavour, but again, there's already a lot in this cocktail, so we don't need to overpower it. 1, 2, just into there. And I'm going to shake it up for not very long, just about 10-15 seconds, just to get everything nice and mixed before I strain it onto some more ice. Okay, that should be nicely mixed now, so I'm going to bang the top off my cocktail shaker and get ready to strain it out into a nice fresh rocks glass that will have a nice fresh rock of ice into it. So I've got my Hawthorne strainer up top just to catch all that ice and just strain it away. Just like that. For a garnish on this cocktail, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. Just going to go in with a little wedge of lime that has a wedge cut into it. Just like that, over the edge. And that right there is how I make a Smoky Daiquiri. Now before I taste this cocktail, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews like the review of that Killowen Rum and Raisin every Wednesday, and I put out cocktail recipes like this featuring whiskey every Friday. So if you want to see more, make sure you scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a note in the comments below and say if there's any cocktail recipes you want me to try out, because I'm always on the look for new recipes. But now, let's try this one. Cheers. Oh, the Killowen rum is really nice. Yeah. So if you like a funky rum, I know some people like a sweeter, lighter rum. Me, I like a bit of a funky rum. I like to taste that kind of character, the molasses, whatever is going on in there. That comes through nicely here. The smokiness from the whiskey, it doesn't fight against the character, the essential nature of the cocktail. It just gives it, I don't know, just a little bit of extra depth, a little bit extra complexity. Like the smoke almost is like sitting over here, the daiquiri notes are sitting over here, and they're not fighting against each other, just kind of like they're counterpoints to each other. So you can get, oh, there's my smoke, there's my rum, there's my lime, there's my whiskey. The honey maybe not so much, like maybe like the honey is just there as sweetness. Like there's a lot of other strong competing flavors here. Not really getting the bitters, but again, we only went in with a little bit. It might just be helping out with that, like that counterpoint, like that balance to the cocktail. For me, I think if you like a daiquiri and you're really fond of a daiquiri, give this a try, or whatever version you can find with your own versions, with your own rum, with your own smoky whiskey. You might not be disappointed. It's quite nice. It gives it a good counterpoint. If you don't like smoky whiskeys, you might not like it, because again, you can taste that peat. You can taste that kind of earthy character of the peat smoke. But me, I'm starting to like peat whiskeys, so I'm liking this cocktail, so I'm gonna keep on enjoying it. And I'll see you next time. Sláinte.